Hey, here to talk about four-note close position voicings. These are voicings you would use on the piano in the right hand or the left hand. Particularly going to be used in the left hand when you're playing a melody in the right hand or improvising in the right hand. I like to learn these first before spreading the voicings out between two hands. I think it's easier. You do a lot of the work, that hard processing work, with these four-note voicings first, and then when you spread it out between two hands, it's easier to kind of make that transition. So this is kind of my method of getting from reading a chord symbol to four-note voicings in the left hand or right hand, and you'll be seeing me playing it in either hand, and I'll kind of talk about that. So here we go. I'm going to move the camera down. Okay. So for reference, this is middle C right there. And as I mentioned, these are four-note close position voicings. Basically what that means, or one way you can remember that, is that close position voicings, all four notes are happening within one octave. So all four notes should be pretty easy to reach by most people's hands, right? The average person's hand should be able to play all four notes comfortably, and it's not going to be like this crazy uncomfortable stretch. So if you've worked through some of the method that I use leading up to this, we start with two-note voicings, and I'm going to be looking at this moment in the key of F. So we start with two-note voicings, and then we move up to three-note voicings, and then four-note voicings. So just a quick refresher and I'm going to be playing a 2-5-1 in the key of F. So that means the first chord is G minor 7, and the second chord is C7, and the last chord is F major 7. So G minor 7, C7, F major 7. So the first step, and I won't go over the details of this, I'm assuming that you've kind of worked on this already. The first step is being able to play the thirds and sevenths with smooth voice leading. Okay, so I'm going to play them in this inversion, which is the G minor 7 is in the inversion with the third on the bottom. And as you're working out voicings, I highly recommend playing them in the right hand and playing roots in the left hand so that you hear that root movement. And you can make the association between the roots and the thirds and sevenths and all of that circle of fifths motion. Okay, but always with the understanding that at any moment, your left hand should be able to play those voicings as well. Okay, and you can play scales in your right hand, melodies, whatever. So the other inversion of that would sound like this. Right? So then adding a third note super quickly, the method that I use or that I recommend is that we've got our chord tones, our third and our seventh. We're going to add a tension note, and that tension note at the moment is going to be above the third and the seventh. Okay, so we're adding something to the top of what we've already done. So that tension note that's going to happen above those, most of the time, it's going to be the 9 or the 13. Most of the time. Everything I say is a guideline. Nothing is a rule. Nothing is black and white. Everything can be changed because it's music, and because jazz music is so improvisatory in nature, everything happens in the moment, and you can always change stuff. So we're going to start with G minor 7. So I can add the 9 or the 13 above my third and seventh. So the 13 in this situation is an E. That's way up high here. That's too far to reach for most people. It's too far for me. If I wanted to add the 13 down an octave, it's in between my third and seventh, so it doesn't fit the kind of the formula. So that means I'm going to add the 9. All right, that's nice. Here's our G minor 7 with the 9. Now, C7, I'm going to add the 9 or the 13. So again, I'll go for the 9. The 9 is a D in this situation, so a D is right here. That means it's in between the two, so we can't use it yet. Or it's way up here. Can't really reach it. The 13 on a C7 chord is an A. G minor with the 9 on the top, C7 with the 13 on the top. Notice those notes are the same, right? So these tension notes, the 9 and the 13, they support smooth voice leading. There should still be pretty smooth voice leading, especially if the harmony is moving around the circle of fifths. And then we're going to play F major 7. Okay, so we're going to go, again, adding either the 9 or the 13. If I add the 9, it's a G. Well, I already kind of know that's what I want to do, right? That's comfortable. If I add the 13, it's a D. It's too high to reach up here, and it's in between my 3rd and 7th down here. Okay, so I have this nice, comfortable, smooth voice leading thing happening. And again, I should be able to do that in my right hand, or left hand as well. Okay, and if we go to the other inversion, I can add, I already used the 9 in this inversion, right? So for my G minor chord, that means I'm probably going to use the 13, which is a fairly dissonant choice on this minor 2 chord. So one of the ways you can kind of break the guideline from the beginning is to, instead of playing the 13, play the 5. And that would just be on a minor chord. Either one works. You can play either one. It's a personal preference thing. A stock voicing, using the 5th is what's considered a stock voicing. And the reason I recommend it when you're in this 2-5-1 situation is because of the C7, the next chord. If I play the 9, it's the same note. So it's very smooth. I still am only having to resolve one note in my voicing between those chords. And then same, F major 7, I can play the 13 on the top, right? And it stays the same. That's the 13. So that's our 3-note voicing. So now to add the 4th note, all we're going to do is add a tension note in between. Okay, sorry, I had a little bit of a technical glitch there. So we're adding our 4th note, and it's the same approach as adding the 3rd note. We're either going to add the 9 or the 13, but this time we're adding it in between the 3rd and the 7th. So G minor 7. We already have the 3rd, the 7, which is an F, and the 9, which is an A. So we've already added the 9, so our next choice is the 13, right? Which is an E. And this is that example I showed you in the other inversion. Sometimes it might support the voice leading a little bit better to play the 5 instead of the 13. It's really pianist's choice. But the stock voicing and the stock way to approach it is to at least start with the 5. And then we're going to get to our C7 chord, which 3 notes we were playing here. We've played the 13 on the top, which means we're going to play the 9 in between the 3rd and the 7th. So back to G minor 7. Now notice, I'm going to play it this way. G minor 7, the only note that changes between those 2 chords in the voicing is that right there. F resolves to an E, or the 7-3 resolution, right? And that's really what that motion around the circle of fifths is all about. Right? And then for our F major 7, we'll have a little bit more motion. Here's our 3-note voicing. I'm going to add, I've got the 9 on the top, so I'm going to add the 13 in the middle. Right there. Okay? Sounds nice. Notice that the 3-note voicing really is what determines our shape. And then adding the 4th note just fills it out, gives it a little bit more texture and body. Okay? Then we're going to go to the other inversion of this. Here's our G minor 7. So I'm playing the 5 on the top. That means I'm probably going to play the 9 in between the 3rd and 7th. And then C7, I'm playing the 9 on the top. So that means I'll play the 13 in the middle. Okay, remembering just like here, G minor 7, C7, the only note that moves in the voicing is there. It's the same thing. One note moves, and that's it. And then our F major 7 voicing, here's our 3-note shape. We're going to add, we've got the 13 on the top, so we'll add the 9 in the middle. So it goes like this. Okay, and as I mentioned, it's very helpful and important to practice these while you're playing the root in the left hand. Okay. That helps you be able to hear that root motion and feel what the harmonic motion really is. If you only practice these without listening to that root, it can kind of mess with your sense of where is the tonality. And a lot of times I will have students come in and say, like, it all sounds wrong and it all sounds bad and I hate jazz. And that's usually because they haven't been practicing it with those roots, which help it feel so grounded. Another thing is being aware of your range, right? So our voicing, our 4-note voicing, a good general rule is to keep everything around middle C. This is like our meat and potatoes zone for comping, especially close position comping. My general rule is that you don't go below this note. This D flat that's below middle C, that's the lowest note in your voicing. You get any lower than that and you are in bass range territory. And things start to get really ambiguous. So for example, here's my 2-5-1. If I took that all down an octave, wow. First of all, it's very muddy. And it's this note, which is the third of the chord, starts to sound like the root. It starts to sound like some sort of B major 7, right? Sound, which it isn't that. So it's G minor. And the tension notes kind of get lost. They're one of the things that makes it muddy down there. So keeping above this note at all times, but also you don't want your whole voicing to be up here above middle C. I wouldn't want this. It sounds fine. It sounds more clear in terms of what the harmony is. But if I was taking a solo and this is where my voicing is, then everything I'm playing is in the top like 2.5 octaves of the piano. So I'm very limited. And thinking about other instruments I'm going to be playing with, when you're comping always up very high, it limits the scope of everybody's playing. So keep everything around middle C. And if it sounds weird or muddy or too high, like change, move somewhere else. Some keys are just going to be better or sound better range-wise in a certain inversion than others because of where the thirds and sevenths fall on the keyboard. One other thing is that these 4-note voicings, you want to keep those flexible between which hand plays them. This is really important for a jazz pianist to be aware of, which is the voicing is the voicing. The voicing is the voicing is the voicing. It doesn't matter which hand is playing it. There's not really a left-hand job, right-hand job situation. Maybe there are in certain contexts of jazz. Let's say you are playing a duo with a horn player, and so they want you to walk a bass line, or you've made the choice to walk a bass line. Okay, yeah, your left hand's walking a bass line, your right hand is playing the voicings. Right? So yeah, we've taken on those roles, but then you might get on a gig where you've got a bass player, so you don't have to walk bass lines. So all of a sudden, which hand plays what switches around. And in that situation, you may be comping with your left hand and playing some melodies in your right hand, improvising in your right hand. Right? So that's another way those roles switch. And then you may be comping for another instrument taking their solo, in which case these kind of close position voicings would be totally appropriate to use. But you can also open those up, which will be a different video and a different explanation. But the point is, here's my G minor 7 voicing, right? I'm just playing the root down here so we can hear that. It should be, or the goal should be, to get to a point where we can be interchangeable between which hand is playing it. The voicing is the voicing. It doesn't matter which hand is playing it. This will help so much when you do start spreading the voicing out. So here's, let's say, this close position voicing of G minor 7. Once that's spread out, it's going to feel and sound a lot more like this. Right? That may be how we'd play our G minor C7F in an open position voicing. Well, if you already are thinking of it just as voicings rather than right hand job, left hand job, when you spread things out, it makes it a lot easier to customize what you're doing and orchestrate what you're doing and spread the voicing even higher, right? Or maybe up here. Right? So, I'm not keeping track of, oh, right hand plays 3 notes, left hand plays 2. Now the left, I'm just thinking of sounds, textures, orchestration. And that's obviously something that you work towards over time. But a first step in that process can be just knowing that I want to be able to play those 4-note close position voicings comfortably in either hand. So there you go. There's kind of how I break down a close position 4-note voicing to be used in either hand. And of course, you can work on this and practice this over 2-5-1s. That's a great way to practice it. I recommend picking like maybe 3 keys a day instead of trying to do all 12 keys every day, especially because you're probably practicing a lot of other things. So pick 3 keys a day and play them for a long time. Like play a lot of the key of F. Play a lot of the key of A flat or whatever you're going to choose next. Another way to practice this is to grab a tune, right? A tune that you may know or a lead sheet of a tune that's new to you, and go through very slowly and meticulously and break down the voicings for yourself, right? So maybe it's the song Have You Met Miss Jones? And you're just, like I said, I've said several times, I prefer first working these voicings out with the root in the left hand so you really hear that root movement. Maybe here's my F major 7, B flat 7, and I'm playing very straightforward voicings in this example with very with limited altered tensions, and I'm kind of following the formula I've given you already. Right, B flat, A minor, D7. Now normally I would play some altered tensions on that chord, but that's we haven't really gotten to that point yet. In this video, that'll be another video. G minor 7, which we're comfortable with, C7, and then A minor again. Right, it goes to the 6th chord, 3 chord, minor 6, 2, 1. Right, so you can slowly go through a song and work out these voicings this way, and then eventually you're going to play the melody with that, right? Altered tensions. I strayed from the thing. So I hope that's helpful. That's kind of a basic overview of 4-note close position voicings.